Thank you for coming, everyone. This is Living World of Darkness. We find ourselves in a cross venue with the werewolves and the vampires, well, perhaps singular, meeting up for the second time. Callie Krykos, the Black Fury Arun of the Sect of the Green, a bit despondent after the failure of her rank challenge against Heinrich, walks north from Central Park, hands in her pockets, making her way down the summer nights, or the fairly warm spring night, with nothing but a light jacket on over her shoulders, sleeve rolled up past her elbows, jeans, and a pair of Converse sneakers. She makes her way along the streets, always fairly vigilant under any normal circumstances, but this evening she's rather distracted, not really paying attention to every now and then a human being giving her a wide berth as she walks by, some of them giving her a second look, but none of them approaching her. As she chews on her lips and thinks about how best to go at a second challenge attempt for the month.
Around this time, a black car, like a black sedan, pulls up. Alongside the curb, it looks like this car has come east from Harlem. And if people were to trace the route, they'd find it having travelled along Malcolm X Boulevard, taking a right at the end. As the car comes to a halt, a suited figure steps out onto the curb, exiting from the passenger side, wearing a midnight blue mohair suit. It looks like this suit was very expensive once upon a time, but now it's a little frayed around the shoulders, the elbows look like they've seen some wear. But all in all, it's in quite good condition. On his feet, this man wears a pair of beaten up black brogue shoes that look like they need rehealing. And he wears a slightly crinkled white button-down shirt with a black knitted tie. And on his head he wears a black pork pie trilby with a rather obvious hole going through the upper part of the hat. From it sticks a small feather. And this tall, lithe figure, who'd be, I suppose, quite handsome if you look at it objectively, sticks his hands into his pockets and fumbles around for a packet of cigarettes, which he pulls one, brings it to his lips and lights it. He glances around before sort of knocking on the driver's side window and seeming to tell them to, he sort of points a direction, and if anybody was to listen it'd say, go around the block. He glances around and begins to walk down the sidewalk.
Perhaps caught in her own little world, perhaps guided by Gaia, perhaps just simply avoiding a large puddle that had formed from rain earlier in the day. Callie steps into the individual's path, not really paying attention to where she's going, perhaps looking down into the reflection at her face as she takes a few steps and almost runs directly right into Limey at that point.
Limey, also slightly caught in his own little world, almost watching the ember burn away on his cigarette as he keeps his head down and his shoulders up, sidesteps very quickly at the last minute, and sort of swerves to avoid this lithe young woman. He glances up with quite alert, quite bright eyes. These sort of bored-looking grey eyes, and just very quietly says, "Watch it."
Callie brings her head up, shaking her head left to right as she comes out of her little trance. Her amber eyes lock with his gray, and she is about to say, my apologies, or something to that effect, when her eyes go a little bit wide as she realizes who's standing in front of her. And she just stares, almost in a befuddlement, as she looks at the individual that she has come to know as the Limey.
Similarly, Limey looks like he was about to carry on walking. It doesn't seem like he's a particularly phased character, but sort of stops and his jaw tightens as he pulls on his cigarette. Don't I know you?
Limey, right?
I'll save the obligatory depends on who's asking. Callie, want it?
She says, almost half grinding her teeth. Yeah, Callie.
And at this point, I think it would be appropriate, with the grinding of the teeth and the wide eyes, to make a perception empathy. That's 6 dice with a specialization in character analysis.
Alright, character analysis. Could you explain that a little bit more to me?
Basically, it's analyzing a person's demeanor, how they hold themselves to form up a profile of their personality, and this can give insight into their intentions and their motivations.
Fair enough. Alright, 6 dice. You have 1, 2, 3 successes.
Groovy.
With 3 successes, you see that if you're trying to discern sort of her mannerisms and the way she carries herself, first off, you can tell that she is a very proud individual by the way she carries herself. She doesn't slunch over. Even with her hands in her pockets, her spine usually stays pretty straight. She has a certain air of confidence around her, but not arrogance. Um, as far as her teeth grinding, Lani might see from her body language that there is something just under the surface, not necessarily pinning in on what, but it does look like restraint, as if holding something back is her main concern right now, as she looks at Limey and narrows her eyes, and her posture sort of squares off with his, but not looking outwardly threatening, almost looking as if she's potentially anticipating an attack.
He kind of raises an eyebrow, and his lips kind of purse as he kind of gives this girl a glance from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet, and takes another deliberate pull on his cigarette. That looks like the face of somebody who's got something to say.
She is going to counter with her own perception empathy. No specialty on her part, though.
Cool.
1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
4 successes. Limey's a relatively concealed chap, so I'm going to give you something, but would you mind rolling a charisma subterfuge for me?
Your charisma subterfuge or mine?
Mine, and that is 7 dice.
How many?
7.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh.
And like I said, I'm not. It's just to see how well he sort of holds himself. This looks like a man who carries himself relatively easily all the time, but the tension of his shoulders and the sort of this kind of aloofness with which he carries himself seems to mask a man who has 1,000,001 problems. And right now, he's wary because you'd think that maybe he wasn't on alert before, like he almost walked into you like this kind of very easy way with which he carries himself you feel has been disturbed. And now there's an alarm bell ringing somewhere.
You'll see a tongue underneath Callie's lips just kind of run across her teeth as she kind of stands more on one foot than the other, sort of raising one heel up slightly. And she shrugs her shoulders back slightly and cracks her neck once and then looks at Limey. Something to say. Hmm. You know, Limey, the last time I met you, I got a definite sense off of you that you were bad news bears. There was something definitely wrong about you.
You sound like the old beat copper from Brixton.
Call
Or
me,
my teacher.
call me a good judge of character. I'm usually not wrong on these things.
That's something wrong about me. Well, suffice to say you're not wrong, but this is New York. You're gonna pick with everybody who's got something wrong about them, then you're certainly on the wrong side of Central Park.
You can roll a perception empathy when you say Central Park if you want.
Yep, cool.
How many dice again?
6.
6 dice. Only 2 successes. Because Callie literally has a piss poor subterfuge dice pool, I'm not even going to attempt to roll it. You can definitely see her eyes, her expressions snap for a split second, as if when you say Central Park, there is definitely a bell ringing there. Something just in her head just caused her a slight moment of, I'm not going to say panic, but wariness. But it soon fades as she takes on a more deliberately guarded stance. And I'll let you make of that what you will.
At this reaction, now Lamy doesn't want to put 2 and 2 together and come out with 5, but he does seem to take a step back and his gaze shoots back in the direction of the car, which has by this time long gone round the corner.
You look tense. What's the matter? And she says it with all of the vitriol behind her words. Now feeling very in charge of the situation.
You look very tense. Dig. Seems both we shouldn't.
You know, we're kind of like a wigwam and a teepee then, aren't we?
Whatever that means. Sure.
Too tense. Never mind.
No, I always got a little bit into beat poetry, but wordplay always a little too dramatic for me. How about we take a walk?
Don't suppose I could convince you to walk back towards the park now, could I?
Don't suppose I could convince you to walk into Harlem now, could I?
I'm more confident of going into Harlem than I think you are towards the park. But let's say we compromise and head towards Chelsea.
Groovy. I know a little place there.
And Kelly would just kind of nod her head as she starts to walk towards basically kind of like a neutral area, sort of on the west side of Midtown. Not that way they're far enough away from the park that, well, if she decides not to do anything, no one will see.
Limey tries to guide the walk through well-lit, vaguely public areas.
Callie will not try to stifle that, although she does seem to avoid take some efforts to avoid groups of people. As it definitely seems like people give her a wide berth.
Well, sorry, 2 seconds. I just need to find a charger.
Lamy might notice while they're walking, they might see Callie, or the individuals that give Callie wide berth, they might give her a look of, well, maybe if somebody with a lot of tattoos or piercings were walking towards them on a dark alley, or somebody wearing a fairly thuggish type attire, although the way she dresses is fairly clean cut and more of a casual modern in many senses. And for her part, she doesn't even seem to really notice that they part ways with her, almost as if it's just something she seems to expect now.
Unless you want me to make a roll for that, Limey does notice the people giving Callie wide berth, and the sort of glances from her to the people, sort of notices the glances back towards her. And at first he thinks it's him because he looks like a bit of a remnant. But he soon realizes that it's actually the quite inoffensive looking redhead walking beside him. Tell me, does Limey get this feeling?
I would say it's pretty obvious. They look directly at her, not at Limey.
No, but what I'm saying is, does he get this feeling off her?
What's your willpower?
5, 6.
6? Yeah, you're fine.
Cool. As they walk to Chelsea, Limey is vaguely quiet. And he sort of pats himself down for the cigarettes again and lights another one, and then gestures towards her with the pack.
No thanks, she says, just kind of holding up a hand. And she says it very sarcastically. Don't you know those things will kill you?
He takes a very, very, very long drag, pulls it right back deep, and then exhales into the night air with a... He blows a large, defined smoke ring. Personally, I prefer them before they put the warnings on the packets. I never care to be patronised to, and I certainly don't care.
Is it true that your kind are walking corpses?
Limey almost looks taken aback by the direct line of questioning, but seems to take it in his stride. Why don't you give me a touch and find out? He holds out a hand. It's long, it's jet white, and it's thin.
She'll stop and look at him with that expression of, really? Almost like, you sure this is what you want? That kind of expression.
So long as I can have it back.
She's gonna grab his hand, and I'm gonna roll Dex Brawl for a grapple, but she's not trying to actually do damage.
Okay.
And with that, she gains 5 successes. So I would say that she probably manages to grab it and torque his thumb a lot further back than is comfortable. And you notice for
Okay.
someone her size, she is outlandishly strong.
In that case, as she jerks her hand and goes to sort of jack the thumb back, I'd like to make a, let's think, Dex. Dex brawl of his own to turn into a very, very cordial handshake that literally snakes out of her grasp.
Okay. How many
Which
dice am I
is
rolling for
a
you?
total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dice.
Respectable. At least Callie can respect you on that. Oh, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd say your hand slips right out of her grasp.
It's as she goes to jam the hand back in a handshake, it turns into almost like a, you know how you delicately hold a lady's hand?
Mm-hmm.
He sort of turns it into that, and then snakes his hand around her own, and then sticks it into his pocket. Oh, you gotta get out of bed earlier than that to pull that one on me, sister.
Wasn't actually trying.
Mm-mm. Sure. Sure.
Kelly will motion towards a playground that's well lit, but a playground that's a little bit isolated so they can actually talk.
He looks towards the playground. Then he seems to look up the street. And he sort of seems to check to see if there are people hanging around, if there are people walking sort of anywhere near here.
Kelly will look at him and look out at the street. I don't need backup if that's what you're worried about.
No, you don't. But I might. He sort of smirks and then carries on walking into the park.
She'll kind of roll her eyes. Yeah, maybe. Though, thus far, you're acting accordingly, so maybe we can keep it that way. I do have questions.
Groovy. I might shoot a couple of your way myself. He begins to pace towards the park, where he sits down on a swing.
Callie will take the swing next to him and actually start to, just with her heels for the moment, just kind of walk herself back and then forth. Not really making too large movements, just kind of doing something that a youth might do when having a conversation on the swing set.
Limey, it's late at night, and as he watches Callie swing, I'm not sure how it is in America, but he does something certainly a British youth might do in a play park after hours, and he lights up a long, thin, very strong smelling cigarette that if Callie has been around the block at all will know stinks of marijuana.
You know what? I'm just going to roll manipulation subterfuge just to see if she can even hide her ooh expression. Two successes. So 6 dice for your perception empathy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You have 3, so you definitely beat her.
Limey glances, sees the ooh expression, and after taking a long drag on this, this spliff, he passes it back to her.
What Callie
Oh,
does is interesting to say the least. What she does is she takes it between 2 fingers. And you'll notice that rather than place it to her lips, she creates kind of like a chamber with the rest of her hand. And then she'll put her lips to like the top of her index finger and thumb and actually take a drag that way.
the old hand bong. How old are you, kid?
She exhales after holding it in for a moment and hands the spliff back. Old
No.
enough that I don't have to, or old enough to vote, not old enough to drink.
Then you're certainly old enough to smoke the reefer. You keep it.
She'll smirk a bit and take another puff on it and then look in his general direction. So you have a pretty good idea of what I am, don't you? Sam? Sam! I wonder if his phone died. Give it a moment. As Callie just puffs away, enjoying her spliff. Oh dear. I do believe Mr. Limey's phone has died. We might have to make a part 1 and part 2 out of this. We'll give it about another couple of minutes here. As Callie uses her feet to start actually swinging back and forth rather than just sitting there idle, as Limey seems to be lost in thought. And so she goes and goes and goes back and forth, waiting, hoping that he actually talks, but doubting that he will. And I do think that that is probably, maybe, we've got about another minute here. I'm going to wait. The one wonderful thing about doing hangout-based roleplay is that sometimes technology does not want to work out as well as you'd hoped. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does look like that might be all she wrote. So unless he comes in the next 20 seconds, I think that we will pause there, allow Mr. Sam's phone to recharge completely, and then try at this again. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that you've enjoyed watching this first part of Just How Tainted Are You? Thank you and good night.